Welcome to Beyond Wealth, Success Unscripted with Matt Calnan. Discover the personal drive, professional journeys, and business strategies that have made a real impact. It's success from the inside out.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Today we're chatting with Obed Maurice. Obed is an accountant by trade, but he's more on the managerial side of accounting and into business strategy. I won't go too much into his background here because we're going to let him kind of kick it off and start telling us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you started out and how you've ended up where you are now.
Oh, awesome. Well, hey, thanks for having me, Matt. I appreciate it. And it's always tricky telling the story of my career because I definitely didn't plan to become an accountant. Actually, I don't know a lot of people who aspire to be an accountant when they're 5 or 10 years old. So for a lot of people, it was, hey, I was looking for a good, stable job. I actually didn't know a lot about accounting. Passed a few courses, wrote a few exams. A couple of people pointed me in this direction, and I became a professional accountant. I learned pretty quickly I didn't want to be a traditional accountant. So, sitting in an office with the green visor and the calculator, kind of cranking out year ends.
The pen protector. You forgot the pen protector.
Oh, yeah. Pocket
Or the pocket protector, sorry. Pocket protector.
Exactly, yeah. So I learned pretty quickly, hey, you know what? That's not going to work for me. I ended up connecting with some really cool entrepreneurs. Ended up running like a family office for a group of high net worth individuals, which
Can you explain just what a family office would be?
Yeah, for sure. Family office, for those of you that don't know, is it's like a holistic kind of high level financial management practice. So addressing everything from wealth management, so typical portfolio investment management, state, risk and insurance, technology. There's usually a portfolio of businesses like operating companies that I would be responsible for as far as the CFO duties go. But long story short, it's kind of looking at higher net worth families and trying to kind of maximize their net worth and then obviously protect that as new generations come in. So a really cool experience to kind of see the world through more of like the potential, like what could be, rather than just the typical kind of year-end style of accounting where you're not really looking at like maximize a family's wealth like over generations. So that was really cool. And hey, got to fly on some private jets, run a couple cool companies, fantastic experience.
And you were pretty young at the time too, right?
I was, yeah. You know what was fun was I was just out of my element. Like I was punching above my weight. The guy I work for, I love him dearly, recently passed away, but he gave me just unlimited responsibility. He honestly believed in me before I believed in myself and just kind of threw me into the deep end. I learned a ton of stuff about buying and selling companies, hiring, firing, working with huge investment portfolios and public companies. So great experience, totally shaped where my career is today. And, I'm very grateful to just kind of have that perspective just a little bit bigger than like what most people think of accountants. So very fortunate to have had that. And I'm back at it. I've founded, my second company that's it's all about, advisory, helping clients, maybe less, they don't have hundreds of millions of dollars of net worth, but they're working towards growing their net worth and trying to make that holistic model a little more available for like the everyday Joe. So that's where we're at today.
Yeah. And your background, I mean, obviously, like you talked about from the accounting perspective is there, but you've also got a pretty significant background on the tech side and kind of the software utilization in terms of efficiency and whatnot. Can you talk a little bit about that and that journey?
Yeah, totally. So again, it's going to really sound like I hate accounting. I don't, but this is probably 10 years ago. I founded one of Canada's first totally virtual CPA firms, which I ended up selling. And the reason I did that is I found accounting to be very just irritating, honestly. There's a lot of manual work, a lot of chasing paper, a lot of paper pushing, a lot of, face-to-face meetings. So I was really interested in how do I kind of automate the frustrating parts of accounting, like the shoe boxes of receipts, the manual checks we got to write, the chasing of timesheets, those kind of typical things. How do we make those things go away so we can just do cooler things for entrepreneurs? Things like figuring out profitability and cash flow and, investing decisions that I know you're familiar with, Matt, on the real estate side. And I really, really wanted to get to the heart of the matter. And I just found like the old school style of accounting was getting in the way, and honestly, it was just costing a lot. Like a lot of entrepreneurs were just spending a ton of time and money. So there wasn't a lot left over for what I call like the cooler or more strategic things. So
The
long
actual
story short,
value add stuff too, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
which is what, like, I think, I know you're a professionally trained finance pro as well. And I do believe that finance is tremendously powerful. We just, like, we don't always get to the fun stuff. And that's a real problem for me. I think it's a problem for a lot of entrepreneurs that are working their asses off, but just don't have that team or those financial professionals available to help with the strategy and the investing side. So that was my motivation again, is just the just frustration. I want to do more, but we're not going to be able to if the systems don't allow us to. So that's what led to that. I ultimately sold it. Things worked out pretty well for me there. It was right around COVID, so that was great. And I think it's pretty mainstream now. Like accounting automation should not be a problem many people have to deal with today. I mean, if they do, call me or something, or like reach out to an accounting automation.
It's pretty simple now to get you automated. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, and so I think that's kind of table stakes nowadays.
Yeah. So you were there. That would have been what, about 15 years ago, roughly, that you're starting to do all that stuff?
Yeah, it's more like 10, maybe like 10 or 11. Like it was, believe it or not, like when we first introduced like doing finance online, like most people laughed at me, like most accounting firms. I actually had to write a grant application to the National Research Council just to get support to deal with like the security and like a few other kind of things. Like it was like an outrageous idea to even think about doing professional services online. And look at us now. Like we're doing a podcast. You and I are both professional accountants, and like we couldn't imagine doing our work any other way. But that was only 10 or 11 years ago, right? That people thought that was absolutely nuts. And now it's kind of like you can't really run a business without an online element to it now, other than like a mining company or whatever. Well, most businesses will have some element of like an online workforce working for it. So it's been a while, but it's been fun. It's good to see things going in the direction that I hoped, right? Where we can do more stuff like this and less, sorting out shoe boxes and that kind of crap.
Debits, credits, all the good stuff.
I hope CPA Canada doesn't hear this. I mean, I truly do financial literacy. I really, really do. It's the systems, right? And I found out, I think your audience, Matt, will be entrepreneurs and mavericks, investors, people that have kind of have charted their own course, right? They're not people like, probably not a ton of government employees listening to your podcast.
I hope not.
But yeah, like my point is that like you come to a point in your career or your investing career or whatever, where you learn that like there is no real rule book. Like nobody wrote the rules around how to do accounting. Yes, there's generally accepted laws and regulations, but nobody's saying that we can't make up our own way. And I think a lot of your audience, and I know you and your career, have just kind of found your own style. And I think that's where things kind of get fun. And that's where I think the value is created, is, just a little bit of a different perspective, a little different style of doing things. And those are the people I gravitate towards, those, can I say shit disturbers, or maybe like
I think you're allowed to say that. Yeah, that's okay.
like the mavericks, right? Like the founders, the mavericks, the ones that are comfortable doing it their way. So yeah, I think that's just one of the takeaways, is that there'll be a point where, you might have to start doing things a little bit differently to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. Well, and Obed, like, honestly, you said something about CPA Canada there and whatnot. We're both CPAs. We would call ourselves very, very different accountants, but I think that's an interesting thing of the profession, is that what people think of as a CPA doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you're actually going to do, right? I don't do anything in accounting. You do virtually nothing in accounting now as well, right? Like it's very financed, consulting, value added, support that's in there. So yeah, we don't have to shit on CPA too much because they are pretty good still. Yeah,
totally. Well, you look at guys like yourself, like the founder of Nike is a CPA, right? And I think the
Yes, yeah,
financial literacy, like there are a lot of people who are financially educated that have gone on to do really cool things. So
yeah,
if I was, looking to hire an accountant or whatever, and I do outsource my own accounting
yeah,
for some stuff, is that entrepreneurial twist, that maverick mentality, that kind of what I was talking about before. Someone who's looking at things from just an entrepreneurial, growth-minded perspective. I think that's kind of the missing ingredient, is probably
yeah.
seeing the potential and then having, honestly, the backbone to go out and execute some of that stuff. So
Yeah, and just doing it, right?
yeah,
Go and do it. Go try it and be okay with failing on it too.
yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. It kind of maybe on the personal life side of things, like you've had a bit of a journey personally as well, starting out in Lethbridge and now living out in BC. Can you talk through some of that and how that transition has been and maybe how that aligns with your career as well?
Yeah, for sure. So I talked about before, being irritated by accounting. So one of the irritations is that a lot of our work doesn't require us to be anywhere. Like the data is available, business happens everywhere. So one of the
Yeah.
things early on in my career, I knew that I wanted freedom. And it's like a lot of founders and investors, the reason they found companies is so that they have freedom and flexibility.
Yeah.
It's not to
Yeah.
build a cage. So that was something that was very near and dear to my heart. So I started doing remote work pretty early on in my career. At the beginning, like I said, pissed a lot of people off. I owned a
Hmm.
house in California, spending half of my year down there while people are freezing their asses off
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
here. But that was the lifestyle I wanted. It was really important to me that I could go and do things. I couldn't see why we would build a company that didn't allow for that freedom. Obviously, we have to
Hmm.
take care of our responsibility. Can't do everything we want, but a big one for me was that flexibility. So probably for the last 10 years, just that freedom of place, freedom of location, freedom of people. Not saying I don't want to work 12 hours a day, but I needed that flexibility. So
Hmm. Hmm.
started off in California, COVID happened, ended up selling my place down there because of the real estate boom. And the second surprise was my daughter became a dance fanatic. So I couldn't just leave for 5 months, right? She's got dance and all these other kind of kids activities that
Yeah.
she needs
And
to
it's
have. So
constant. It's
it
constant.
is. So that was a bit of a surprise about parenting, is that,
Yeah.
but I had this cool master plan, but as some of the listeners will know, just getting married, having kids,
Yeah.
founding a business, lots of surprises in there. So
Yeah.
ended up settling in interior BC, which has been fantastic. I still have a place in Lethbridge. I have clients kind of throughout Canada, so still that same kind of style. But Lethbridge it's a cool spot. I got a great network. You and I get a chance to have beers every once in a while, which
Yeah.
is great. But I like to spend time in the mountains and really just spend time doing stuff that I really enjoy, all the while being a professional, doing my work. I'm not
Yeah.
saying slack off. I'm saying doing it in a way that aligns with my values. So
Yeah.
on the personal front, I love skiing, biking, wake surfing, hanging out with my daughter, just time outdoors, hiking, etc. Beers with my buddies, just like a regular guy. And that doesn't always include, being in an office in a
Hmm.
specific
Hmm.
so, yeah.
I seem to remember actually something you told me a long time ago, which was one of the really important things in your life was that, and your daughter was quite young at the time, but that you wanted to be able to have a tea party every morning with her.
I do. It is a little bit silly for sure. That mornings for me is like
Yeah.
I I like to work hard. I probably work, easily 10 hours a day, but the morning kind of rush was a really big deal for me. And I study entrepreneurs like a lot. Like I've worked with a ton of founders, and one of the most common kind of I don't know, regrets, I guess, is like not taking the time on the stuff that really mattered.
Yeah.
And so for me, I had to make a very intentional decision early. Like I need to build a company that allows for me to just spend a few extra minutes in the morning. I'm not saying, I don't start work till 10. It's just, I don't want to be racing out the door.
Yeah.
when a 3-year-old wants to have a tea party with me.
Yeah.
That's not the point of founding a company. The point of founding a company for me is to have the freedom and the responsibility, and those two need to kind of work together. So
Hmm.
that's a really big deal. And I mean, I try and make those intentional decisions. Just, we're all going to have those personal things that are near and dear to us. Some guys want to
Yeah.
go racquetball. Someone wants to make sure they get date night every Friday night. It's whatever those things are that are personal to us. That one was for me. And I know, like, my
Hmm.
daughter is growing up, and that opportunity is going to slip away faster than I think. I've watched
Yeah.
1,000 entrepreneurs go through the exact same journey of trying to balance work and family. And it's just, the more intentional and thoughtful we can be about it, I think the better. So yeah, so far so good.
Yeah.
By no means am I the perfect dad. I mean, I still get yelled at, and rules broken and all that kind of stuff. But that's one I think I can say I did pretty well. Is those
Yeah.
mornings? Yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a really cool story, actually. And
yeah,
obviously that one stuck with me. And even as I went through my journey of becoming a parent now to two kids, that's one of the things that has always resonated with me is when you said that. Earlier you had talked about that the entrepreneurial drive. So you can have, say, an accountant or a lawyer or whatever it is, a doctor. But you said kind of one of those differentiating factors is somebody that's got that, like the gumption, the entrepreneurial drive, the whatever that, like, it's almost an intangible to
yeah.
describe it. Do you think that can be learned?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it can be. I think for a lot of us, it's like a discovery. Like we don't all wake up with that calling, that,
Yeah.
like anyone who's founded a business knows that it's a ton of work to just go out, do the incorporation documents, go and sell your first product or service, go and
Yeah.
figure out banking, figure out marketing and account. Like, there's so much work that goes into founding a company. So it has to matter to you, for
Hmm.
it to be worthwhile. At least
Yeah.
I can't think of an entrepreneur I've met where their work didn't matter to them. And I think that I like to believe, I could be wrong, that most of us have that kind of intrinsic desire to do something unique and deeply personal to us, but we don't always discover it right away. Sometimes it takes a little
Hmm.
bit of time to maybe a setback. Maybe for me, it was an irritation. I landed in a profession that just annoyed me. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I
Yeah.
just thought there was a better way. For others, maybe we're born into it. But I think regardless of kind of where we end up, I do think it's important to try and discover that for ourselves. What matters to us when it comes to our work and to our professional relationships. And oftentimes, um, nobody's done that like for us. It's not a business. It doesn't exist yet. It's something that we need to go out and build, which is, again, something I know that you're doing with your businesses right now. Is
Hmm.
it doesn't already exist. So I need to go out and kind of make that for myself. And it's a really deeply personal experience to me to go and figure out what that is, try some things, screw up a few times, but eventually know that we're building the life we want. And that often includes a business. It includes a company that's going to allow it. The truth is, look, I've been a partner at a big accounting firm.
Yeah.
It's actually in most people's best interest for me to just shut the hell up and do my billable hours. It's
Hmm.
not in other people's best interest for me to go and found a company, sell a company. And that's a hard place to be. And I think most entrepreneurs understand that there's going to be a moment in our lives where we need to, do things that are in our best interest, not necessarily in everyone else. Sometimes other people's best interest pays really well. It's really comfortable.
Yeah.
We don't have all these risks. And I'm not saying you got to go out and quit your job, but I think it's worth kind of figuring out what is our kind of entrepreneurial spirit. Let's try and cultivate it. And so, long-winded answer, Matt, but I do think it can be cultivated. It might not always be front of mind. For me and you, it's definitely front of mind. But even that took some time.
Hmm.
It wasn't
Hmm.
like, I don't think I came out of the womb with a calculator and a business plan in my hand. It just
Yeah.
takes time, right?
Yeah. And I would say one thing too, and I get your opinion on it, but I think no matter what, it's still scary for everybody.
Mhm.
No matter how willing you are to take the risk or whatever, it's scary as hell to do it.
It is. I think one of the what I notice about a lot of successful entrepreneurs I work with is it's scary. They're still willing to do it, but they're excellent at managing the risk and the downside.
Yes.
They're not saying that they're not scared. They're not saying that there isn't risk, but they're very savvy when it comes to managing risk, bootstrapping, minimizing,
Yeah.
potential financial disasters. There are a lot of founders you'll see, they'll be the ones doing the first sales. They'll be the ones doing the first product or service delivery. They're the
Yeah.
ones
Everything.
driving down to Costco to get the toilet paper. Like
Yeah.
it's just because, you know what, like I'm not in a position where I want to hire a bunch of people. And so I do say, yeah, I think you get your confidence as things grow, but there's always that kind of doubt, that kind of lingering doubt. And that's
Yeah.
kind of why you got to do it,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think about it sometimes I think about it every day actually on our real estate side. We have a real estate fund. And I know that we can push our returns higher. We do have, we have strong returns. We've had strong historical returns. I know that we can push them higher, but it would put us at too much risk by doing
Yep.
that, right? So that's kind of that trade-off is you've got to have that risk return factored into that, and sometimes that means doing things a certain way or picking up the toilet paper at Costco, because yeah, it'd be nice to have the assistant hired that can do that for you, but don't put yourself in that risk if you don't have to.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it helps, like just having someone like you as a business owner to kind of think about the risks. I mean, I see a lot of people take unnecessary risks. They're just like they just genuinely didn't know
Yeah.
that they could have handled something differently, right?
Yeah.
I had a client the other day who was thinking about this big marketing spend, and pretty successful company. You're gonna spend, I don't know, 40 grand on like video and kind of
Yeah.
promoting all these. Like, well, why don't we just spend 500 bucks and just get some data? Like before
Yeah.
we kind of
Do a little
commit to
beta
this huge
program.
thing. Yeah, like
Yeah.
why don't we test? Like we don't really have a marketing strategy. We're not even sure of the messaging and positioning of this product. Why don't we just kind of do some micro experiments and just get a little more confidence? But the way they had only thought about it was either nothing or 40 grand. And I
Right.
thought, well, like let's look at some options in between there that can still help us get going. I know some would disagree, saying screw it, just go full send, spend the cash. But maybe that's our accounting training talking is like, hey, if we can slow it down, manage the risk, takes us an extra week, like I'm okay with that.
Well, that's the thing. It might only be an extra week, right? It's not like you don't have to delay something a year. It's get the proof and then go put the capital out. Don't put the
Yep.
capital out until you can prove it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
that's a really good point. So in your work right now, what are you doing with clients?
Yeah, great question. I think I got a couple things going. One, it's kind of that mini family office that I talked about.
Yeah.
So working mostly with entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs that are a little bit more mature. So they're starting to make a little bit of money, and now we're focusing on building out like their long-term strategy for their company. So things like the marketing, moving the sales off of the owner's plate. So getting them into more of an ownership and less of an
Yeah.
operator. And then, so that's the business side. And then we actually combine that with personal finance. So making sure that they've got retirement and their investments are performing well. They've got good tax and estate strategies lined up. And like one of the biggest concerns I'm trying to solve is I don't want to see people pour everything into their business and not end up multimillionaires by the time they're kind of my age or in their 50s.
Yeah.
Is that I want to maximize their overall financial health, which is typically a combination of their business performance and their personal finance and all like the elements that go into that. So I just see that being a real challenge in our industry is that
Yeah.
very few of the professionals have like a holistic view of their clients' financial life. They usually think about it like, well, it's a year end I gotta do, or it's a portfolio I need to manage. And there's actually a ton of opportunity in that kind of overlay role that's kind of combining all the different disciplines to make sure that everyone's kind of doing what they need to do. So that's what I'm working on right now. Got
Yeah.
a couple clients doing that. So far, so good. And I feel like I'm going to be doing that for the foreseeable future for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Has there been anything in your career that's been really influential, from like a book, a podcast, anything like that?
Oh my goodness, yeah. So many positive influences. Let me think through a couple. One of them was just learning about behavioral economics. So that was Daniel Canahan wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow that talked a lot about like our financial decision-making biases. So that was a
Yeah.
big one. Working with other entrepreneurs has been huge in just like shifting my thinking and kind of helping me see the potential in others. Another two great books. One is Principles by Ray Dalio. Just talks a
Yeah.
lot about like decision making frameworks. Um, and one of my kind of random favorites is it's a book called Everyday Design by Don Norman, who's this classically trained consumer product designer, but he really kind of sheds light on just how we make decisions in the world based on, how things are designed. So systems, products, etc. So for us as professionals, we might perform very poorly in one environment or business, but perform like as a world-class athlete in a totally different setting. So it
Right.
really helped me kind of understand like the value of like design and why, for us to reach our highest potentials, we need to be thoughtful about the systems that we operate within. And those are a couple off the top of my head. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
huge reader. I read like tons of stuff. I'm reading Deep Work by Cal Newport right now. So
It's a good one.
yeah,
Yeah.
tons of good stuff out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you took the time to do the podcast after reading, or while reading Deep Work, because that would tell you not to do this podcast and just focus.
Well, this is my second time, but one thing that's really important to me is relationships. Like
Hmm.
I've learned as I get a little bit older, one of the true joys of my career is working with the right people. So obviously, Matt, you're one of those right people, right entrepreneurs, founders, people that are looking to grow. And I get a ton of joy from working with those types of people. Makes me a bad government employee. It would make me a terrible accounting firm partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it makes me a pretty good financial planner and business strategist, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for what it's worth, I was looking forward to this conversation. I am trying to do deep work, but not all the time.
Well, you can have a break for half an hour.
Totally.
So what's on the horizon next for you? What are big products, big goals? Like, what are you looking to do?
Yeah, totally. I mean, on the fun side, I talked a little bit about my service company, really excited about that. And then as a fun side project, I actually have a financial planning app that I've been working on for a few years. I'm launching that this month. It's just really to help people kind of educate themselves about finance, track
Yeah.
some things like their net worth. Those simple things like remind themselves and their loved ones about those little financial to-dos, all those things you wished your accountant would do, like just
Yeah.
remind you of like important deadlines. I thought, why don't we just build an app that does that instead of waiting for accountants and investment advisors to be proactive? I think technology can do a lot of that. So that app's called Maxim One. And that's coming out. It's in beta right now. But that's just kind of like a fun project to just again that got to
Yeah.
scratch that irritation, right? I gotta make finance better for people
Yeah.
instead of waiting for the classic accountants to do that.
Yeah, and we'll have to put some links in the podcast notes here as well, so that people can go and reach out on that one. Well, and it's an interesting timing on that, because a lot of people I think are pretty upset right now with what's happening with Mint, because
Yeah.
Mint is an app that a lot of people used. I personally didn't use it, but I've heard of a ton of people that have used it. And I think it's either gone right now, or it's supposed to be gone within the next couple of months here. So might be a good time for people to help transition into a new finance app there as well. And it sounds like yours maybe a little more educationally based as well.
Yeah, great call out. You're totally right, Matt.
Mm-hmm. So if somebody wanted to connect with you, or find out a little bit more about what you do, or maybe look for your services, where would they be able to contact you at?
Yeah, totally. I mean, my name Obed is pretty unique, so just Googling
Yeah.
Obed Maurice will usually land you there. But LinkedIn, just Obed Maurice, like on LinkedIn is a usually easy spot. Website, maximadvisorygroup.com. You can hit
And
us
that's,
up on our
sorry, that's Maxim, Maxim.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, maximadvisorygroup.com. You can hit us up there on the contact form. Those would be the two easiest spots. And yeah. all the usual socials if you just Google Obed, but those are the two best ones.
Yeah. And I'd say for anybody on the entrepreneurial side, the finance side, anybody like that, go and follow Obed. He's a really cool guy. Really, I mean, as you've heard, the background is pretty unique and diverse. So it's pretty cool to see all the stuff that you're doing for sure.
Well, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, well, let's wrap it up here. Thanks for joining on the show here, and I'm sure we'll have you back at some point. And yeah, good luck with everything out there in BC.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Okay, thanks, Obed.
You've been listening to Beyond Wealth, Success Unscripted with Matt Calnan. Want to be our next guest? Visit beyondwealthpodcast.ca/guest. See you on the next episode.